Can you hear me now? What a terrible mistake to make. So I just carried on for about 8 or 9 minutes. Can you hear me now? Okay. Well, you'd think if I've been making videos for over a decade, I'd know to turn the microphone on, right? All right. So we have the new stuff, the new background, no more white sheets. I've had this collection of stuff from Christmas and everything else put up. That way, we have lots of curiosities for those of you that bore easily, or maybe you have ADD and stuff like that, and that gives you something to do other than watch me just sit here and smack my lips about Section 8. So that's good news, right? I'm feeling better. And for most of you that may have known, I had the norovirus, and I got to tell you, I've never made so many trips to the bathroom or had such struggles with holding down food for a week. I think I lost around 11 pounds in water weight. And I had to call family in to take care of me. So I'm back partially. I'm a little bit jacked up on a specific one of these energy drinks. Now, most of you are going to disagree with me drinking this. I know that, right? So, anyways, I'm glad to see all of y'all, and I'm glad that we now have something to look at in the background of the video because I know you get tired of me hanging sheets in the background and blankets and other things. So now this will be the new view of things, and I'll give you a quick view of the Christmas tree real quick for the office. Did a lot of work on that. Oh man, you can see it goes all the way up. It's not bad, not bad at all. That's about 15 years worth of decor stuff. So, all right, let's move on to the actual video. This is a Q&A for Section 8 for those of you who are trying to educate yourself and get out there and get a housing choice voucher. If you have questions, now would be the time to jump in there. Don't be shy. So, and I apologize again for the muting. Again, I should have probably paid attention, but I'm like most people, I turn the microphone off because you never know who's censoring or tapping your computers these days. All right, so first thing we're going to address, we're at end of year, which means we have 4 critical months left. That is December, January, February, March, and potentially April. These are very, very good months when it comes to housing and vouchers and getting them. And I'm going to tell you why. Every year we go through a period which is really tough. That's when summer happens, and the amount of people that want to move and receive vouchers becomes insurmountable for the year. Now, as we approach October, the amount of people that want vouchers and want to move drops off a cliff. So that leaves us in a great position because it means that the demand for vouchers and housing falls off a cliff by almost half. And the closer we get to the end of the year, the better. Also, they've already going to be burning the federal budget all the way up to December and the beginning of January, which means we get a new federal budget. And that's good news because for those of you that are still willing to get out there to apply for housing or vouchers, it means a greater opportunity, greater odds and chances that many housing authorities magically, when they were not open during the summer, will now be open because they feel they can achieve better results with a smaller crowd. Now, one thing that I have a big concern for is the politics of all this. We're up for a presidential election for 2024. Nobody's really supporting social programs. And I want people to understand Section 8 housing is not a social program. Nobody's ashamed to go to their mailbox and collect their Social Security check. Then why thus would you pay taxes and then afford yourself a Section 8 voucher if you are emphatically low income? So there would not be a federal agency present or being able to issue this if it was a social program. Many people may have not that much retirement, and it does service mainly seniors, veterans, and disabled. And so Section 8 is bridging that gap for what would be most people being on a fixed income, which is most Americans, unless you live the glamorous life as a doctor or an attorney. And even I get those occasionally. So one thing I want to tell you guys, if you're going to make a decision and you're going to be calculated about it, if you're out there and you've given your best efforts towards housing, and you've tried it your way, you've tried it your neighbor's way, you've gone to those Facebook groups that give all that fantastic advice, and it has not worked out, has not yielded a result for you, then you might want to consult and step in. You know, we've been doing this now for over 20 years, approaching close to 25, right? Now, while our success rate is not 100%, It's sufficient enough to grant most people what they need over a duration of time. In the beginning, we had a lot of success within 2 to 4 months, and then it went from 2 to 4 months to 4 to 6 months, and now because of the pandemic and other cost inflation and other housing related issues and a much smaller housing market, less landlords, we're now in a range of 4 to 8 months, and eventually it'll be up to a year. Okay, there's nothing I can do about that. If it takes longer, it takes longer. It's better to wait 4 to 8 months than it would likely be to wait 4 years to 20 years on some of these ridiculous waiting lists. So I would tell you that if you're going to make a decision regarding housing, I think that you probably would want to make it pretty soon. And as we approach April and May, the market will become strange again, and the election could have a heavy impact of that. And they could defund a great deal of this, and it can become nearly impossible for a big portion of 2024. So I'm going to tell you, you have to decide between Christmas gifts and all that good stuff for whether or not it's best to put your value in working with a consultant to get you housing if you need that. Now, the services I provide are strictly a situation where if you've done your best and it's not yielded a result, then that would be appropriate. I am not an optional service. I don't work for HUD. And so I would tell you that don't use the service unless you absolutely necessarily need it. Okay. So many of my clients just simply need it. They've tried and has not resulted. All right. So I'm going to say some hellos real quick. JW, good morning. Lizzie, good morning. Bay Otter says, no sound. Good morning. Natasha Taylor, I can't hear you. Well, you should be able to now. Xana Blue says, yes. Natasha Taylor says she finally caught me online. We're glad to have you back again. JW, get little mama to help you out. I know she's around here somewhere. She came up early in the back office. For those of you know that I rescue cats, and I got a lot of them, and we have another cat we've added to the collection. So now we're approaching crazy number of cats again. Undoubtedly, you'll see a tail bouncing through this video eventually if we talk long enough. My cats are very impatient when it comes to videos in the office, so they tend to want them to be serviced while we're usually live. Good morning, Lizzie, again. Is Section 8 a federal program? Well, I would say that HUD is a federal agency. I would say that Congress funding HUD would make, by virtue, housing choice vouchers a federally funded program. However, it does not mean that one voucher is all vouchers. There are many types. Let's consider that for a minute. So if their Congress allocates money or funding to HUD, and HUD allocates that down to states and PHAs, and if Congress says we're going to give out $4 million for veterans to get them off the street, we're going to give out $6 million to the homeless, get them off the street. We're going to give out another $2 million for HOPWA program for those with HIV or AIDS. We're going to give out another $20 million for those that are families with disabilities, and we're going to give out another $60 million to those that are seniors and disabled over 62 or 55 plus. Then you could say that all these programs could be subsidized or paid for by the U.S. Congress, so they're federally subsidized. And then you could also have to consider that many programs that receive federal dollars, like continuum of care, coordinated entry system, that deal with homeless, same thing, but they're administered at a nonprofit level. So in total, and we look across the market, there could be a potential between county, state, and federal level across all 50 states, maybe upwards of 130 some odd types of vouchers, funding, and subsidies. It's a confusing web. I've tried to untangle it for many of you for over a decade on this YouTube. But I think that sometimes just because we have a menu at a restaurant doesn't mean everything is going to be good on that menu, right? I think that we have to eliminate it down to the vouchers that are worth dealing with and the programs that are funded well enough where we know that Uncle Sam is not going to run out of money. I do not particularly deal with state programs and county programs because, one, that is a city taxpayer funded program or a state taxpayer funded program. And when the taxpayers of a state decide they don't want to do anything further, it means you have a voucher and you get evicted. So I would say strictly the tone of this channel would be strongly supporting only vouchers that are federally funded through PHA, CES, and HUD BASH for veterans. I don't deal with any of the other nonsense vouchers. You see a lot of that extra in places like San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York, where the city steps in and then gets part of the taxpayer base for the state to pay for vouchers. But those coffers tend to run out of money and people get evicted. So I don't pursue anything that's at a non-federal level. All right, moving on to other questions. I'm going to take a sip of my energy drink to keep myself boosted up here. JW, I've contacted PHA every week about my DB that I'm experiencing. My list status has dropped from 20K to 6K, but no other response. JW, there is a softer, easier way to get through what we call DV or domestic violence. And I would suggest to you that the PHA may not be the most expedited route you can take. Let's also be clear that many people that are experiencing domestic violence of any form, including harassment, stalking, abuse, whether physical or mental, PHAs and those type of vouchers and types of housing are usually not the best option because not everybody that experiences this type of problem is attempting the right thing. So there are domestic violence victims where they're often pooled in with people that may be engaged in prostitution and other things, which makes the voucher and the types of housing and where these people would be put or where they could lease in a rather fickle position. So I would say to you that pursuing different types of vouchers that are not strongly tied to domestic violence would be a quicker and better option for you. Now, if your local housing authority is not open or they have a ridiculous waiting list, which some do, then you have to look at a broader set of options where you may be able to achieve getting a voucher in a state with a shorter list that will grant or waive portability under federal rules due to domestic violence, and then be able to port that back to where you are. It's a complex system of things where you're making a request, you're requesting portability, and then a third process is you're compelling under the 2008 Disability Act to make it a accommodation, and then you're backing that again with the support of an attorney or an attorney's letter. So there's a methodology that works well to expedite that. Now, if you're just waiting on the goodwill of the housing authority, you would be better off jumping off a bridge because many housing authorities are either overworked, understaffed, or they simply haven't the desire to do anything very quickly. And then you have another dilemma in place. As we move through December, housing authorities use this as vacation time. Despite clocking in the office, many of them refuse to answer phones, emails, or even do anything outside of log into Farmville and play a game for December. They feel they've done enough, and once they cooked the federal budget, then the housing authority essentially sits on its ass till about January 5th. So I got to tell you that December is a rough month to deal with housing authorities because, well, they may be open and granting vouchers and different things. They're not. They're at the lowest point of communication through the month of December. Why? Because they use the excuse of Turkey Day. Plus, a few weeks later, we have Christmas, right? So they use that as a method for them to essentially to do internal organizing. And so they're less focused on the process of Section 8 and handing out vouchers. So December is very fickle. Natasha Taylor, I'm fleeing DB, and Texas is not helping quick enough. I've been here for 4 months. Well, I would say you're looking for a magic bullet because no matter what type of housing or voucher you're looking for, the odds of them getting it done in months are pretty remote. I think that 4 months could potentially be a reasonable amount of time, but more likely twice that. Cynthia Dixon, I have been on the waiting list since July 2021. Well, you're clearly on the wrong waiting list because if you've already waited 3 years, then you're likely going to wait another 10. And so, look, guys, there are 2,800 housing authorities. If you're you're sitting in a city and you sign up for a waiting list, you could sit on that thing for decades. And if they don't select you, probably in the first year, you're very low priority to them, which means next to nothing. There were people that waited 18 years. It'd be a much better option to not hang your hat on one stupid application in one stupid sitting. I would advise that you multiply your efforts throughout the state at every housing authority and then request portability with an accommodation at a later point where you would probably get a lot more offers for vouchers than you sitting there and wishing and hoping on one list, unless you have the time. If I told my clients, oh, by the way, let's sign up with the housing authority, I'll give you a call in 19 years, my clients would tell me to fuck off. And now I tell you the methodology our office has used, it's worked very, very well between 4 and 8 months, sometimes a little longer. But we approach hundreds of housing authorities for each individual client. And generally, we usually yield between 3 to 6 offers. If we only address one housing authority, that's like you trying to sign up for the lotto and hoping you're going to win. So I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm just saying that maybe your idea or concept, timing, and the use of a voucher may be skewed. Mellow Soul 46. I'm trying to apply for a waiting list, but it says that I have to be a North Carolina resident. You know, one of the best, I can think of about 100 things that housing authorities do very cleverly. First of all, you cannot accept federal funds as a housing authority or a public housing authority and thus say that you're going to only use those federal dollars in your zip code. That's illegal. Okay. So don't fall for that. Because they have a local preference for work or you living local, it only affects your case probably about 5 or 6% of how important it is. In fact, a person that's disabled and a senior in a completely different state would outrank a person with a local preference. And in no circumstance may any PHA simply limit their voucher to only their county. If they're suggesting otherwise through email or their website, then that needs to be taken to OIG or HUD because you cannot do that. You cannot accept federal funds and decide that you're only going to service one market and one zip code. That's highly predatory. It's probably illegal. It's a great way to get defunded. All right, guys. So we're here for those of you sitting in the shadows and you want to discuss housing. Now ask the tough questions. That's what I'm here for. Now, the next video I'm going to be making is going to be regarding presidential election. And again, the topic will not be politics and Democrats and Republicans. It's going to be the potential effect of what's going to happen for 2024. I'm going to give a viewer advisory. That video will have multiple profanities because I tend to express myself in a less and probably in a more Southern Louisiana way when it comes to politicians and those that have great deals of money making decisions for those that don't have it. And so I haven't any respect for politicians, basically. And so we're going to look at the effect of what potentially could happen for 2024 and what's going to happen for those that already have a voucher, those seeking a voucher, and those that did not decide to do anything. And it's going to be kind of a tough conversation because the outcome could be rather dire. It's the same kind of a warning I've issued for 2021. Again, my goal is not to politicize candidates. It's to discuss the fact that no candidate at this point wants to support this type of housing or vouchers. And it could send part of this country reeling. Now, the secondary part is the impact of pressure we're feeling under the housing market, where we have landlords exploitively moving rents at such a rapid pace that even HUD's is having a hard time keeping up with adjusting the amount of the value of the voucher to match actual market rents, which means even if you want a voucher in certain areas of the nation, by the time you'd be able to use it, it would be worthless in comparison to a market where the rents are flying so high. All right, let's take a look here. Haven't responded since summer 2023. I'm disabled and was trying to get a EHB to move to another state. I may need to use a higher level service to help me with this one. I think so, JW. You know, services, there are some limited services when it comes to this stuff. You look around online and see who's out there that can help you with that. Captain McLean, can they limit vouchers to work and live in a city or a county where the vouchers are available? Only in very rare circumstances where we have a community of people in a specific state where it may be a highly depressed area. As an example, there was an extreme focus on like Detroit. So we had a lot of money leaving the city. A lot of people were under duress in that city. And so you can see why they may have had an allocation of money from the feds that would not have been permitted to move out of state. Now, that situation that played out in Detroit a number of years ago would have been an excellent reason why a voucher could not move and maybe declined legally. But in most circumstances, in most places of this nation, you cannot simply relegate vouchers simply to one place. Otherwise, that would void the portability process. Brandywine 20, I have a voucher and what to do to relocate from Florida to North Carolina. So Brandywine, that would be a process under Title 24 called Portabilities and Moves. It's around 38 pages, but I can summarize some of it. You would first contact your PHA and notify them of your intention to see whether or not you would have the ability to be able to do anything. Number two, if that were to be granted, then you would need to contact the forwarding housing authority where you intend on moving and then tell them your intention, because what you're trying to do is get both housing authorities to cooperate first. In other words, know what's going to happen before you do it. If you don't do that and you begin portability, the housing authority you're requesting it from doesn't give a damn whether or not you get a voucher when you leave that state. And you could end up down there bankrupt with all your shit in storage and then turn homeless. I know lots of people that trusted the forwarding housing authority and ended up homeless in a hotel. So after that happens, you talk to both PHAs and you have a clear path to do this, and you give a 30-day notice to vacate, and then your worker would begin the 30-day process of review to be able to issue portability on your Section 8 voucher. And at that point, they would either bill or absorb, which means they would send a bill to the prior state where you come from, or they would tell you to relinquish the voucher, and you would thus be issued a voucher on the state budget for the new state you're living in or county. Now, if you're already going to move from one place to another in the same state, it's the same situation that would play out. If you're still struggling with that process there, I'd say reach out to my office just with a minor consult. I could probably walk you through it. It's probably one of the least sophisticated things that you can achieve throughout the process is portability, except when you are trying to take. Some of you have spent a career of attempting to build accommodations into your vouchers. In other words, you've had the voucher 20 years. You've convinced the housing authority to give you all kinds of bells, whistles, and perks. And then you take that voucher that's fully loaded, and then you try to move it to a different state with a more limited budget, and they strip that voucher down to just nothing. They rip away everything that you worked for those 20 years. They say to be careful in how you do this, okay? Making sure you understand your federal rights, making sure you understand proper policy and procedure, and that way they don't take and ghost your voucher, and then all you end up with is just a bare bones voucher with no accommodation. Cutie Pie, welcome back to the channel. I definitely recognize that name. You may or may not be the last Cutie Pie, but I do remember it. Hello, glad you made it live. I'm glad I did too. It took a lot of inspiration this morning to hop in this video, but I tell you, this year has been a difficult one for me. I had a number of health problems, and we had to move and all these different things. And I got to tell you, I've made fewer videos this particular 2023 than I have in my entire career. I'm hoping to amp this up and do much better for the next month. But you know, January, February, and March is chaos. We have the highest number of clients during those months, and so I don't know how well we'll do. But I think things are normalizing, and y'all should see more action out of me. I keep promising that. But it's not like the old days. The old days, I used to make a lot of videos 2 or 3 a week. Now we're lucky if we get one every couple of weeks. But I'm hoping to improve that now that we finally have a professional studio. We have a nice background to look at, that I'll keep changing things around, curiosities. I think that we all need something different to entertain us, and sometimes just having a cool or neat background can help that. Cutie Pie, qualifying for Section 11. Can I stay in a home that I'm in, or do I have to find a different place? That depends on whether or not your funding for the voucher is Section 811, or whether or not you have a subsidized property under a subsidy. And so Section 811 can work both ways. Now, whether you can stay, well, that depends on whether or not your landlord participates or it's a qualified subsidized property. To be honest with you, Cutie Pie, I would have to ask you a lot of questions, and I would probably need to check the property personally, or at least call them or see before I could say that. But I think you could do the same. You don't necessarily need me for that. Moving on from that, I think that we're going to wrap this up. I've been rambling, and the reason I'm rambling is because I haven't made a video in a while. I used to be very to the point, but today I felt like rambling a little bit. See if you kind of warm you up, see if you want to ask me questions. So we're going to be doing an extra spicy video. And trust me, I've seen my spicy videos, and we're going to talk about politics in relation to Section 8 vouchers. If you have a strong Christian or religious preference, maybe that's not the best video for you. You won't care for the profanities, or you may not care for the truth, at least the way that I like to express it. For that, you'd want to skip the video, wait till we have a less spicy video. I always warn people because not everybody's prepared. That's the neat thing about having your own channel. I can be professional one day, and I can be Southern Louisiana trailer trash the next day and talk how I want. That's the beauty of being in America. It means we have the freedom to speak as we wish, and you can either share those views or the intensity or even profanities in a video, or you can't. That's a lovely part about it, because nobody really wants to watch a middle-aged white dude talking monotone in every video. All right, guys, I've enjoyed speaking with y'all today, and I'm looking very much forward to the political shitstorm we're going to be talking about for 2024 in our next video. So please do join if you like that. Any questions that I have missed, it is not intentional. It's very hard for my eyes to track comments, and sometimes they elude me. If I miss your comment, just reach out to my office and ask that way. Cutie Pie, thank you for commenting on the tree. I want you to know, all the stuff you see, that was not purchased with money that people have paid me. This is a collection of stuff that I've had and built on probably for 15 years, okay? So I don't want you to think I live in some golden palace and I've got money to blow, because I certainly don't. This just means that if I have an affinity for any part of my life, I'm a holiday nut. And so I think you'll see that a lot of what you see is my attempts to blow the bigger part of my private budget on Christmas stuff. And that's my collection. So anyways, you want to take another look at the tree real quick? Because I'm very proud of this thing. I worked on it while I was sick. There we go. So I go to the top. I can control the camera here. All the way up. All the way down. I tell you, that was a lot of work. And believe it or not, I can only decorate 1/3 of the tree because some of those bulbs are rather expensive, and I have to do it a little bit each year. Otherwise, I would have to work a second job to pay for some of these damn bulbs. So every year I add a little more to the tree, so that we're about I can only have enough bulbs to cover about 1/3 of the tree. Sad, really. Maybe in another 15 years, I'll be able to afford bulbs for all of the tree. I like the glass ones because they're good, and so I'm hoping to do better next year. I had about another 5 bulbs. It's better than the non-shatter bulbs. I like the glass ones from the old days. For those of you that are old school that remember what Christmas bulbs were made of, blown glass or lead glass, that's the ones that I kind of like. So y'all get to see that, and I enjoy showing you a little bit of my inside life, because there's very few things that I take great pride in or joy. And Christmas and all that is one of the things that I enjoy. All right, guys. Well, I enjoyed talking with you guys. You enjoy your day. We'll see you in a couple of days. Bye-bye.